All right, presented by Litify. I'm Bill Biggs, and this is Transforming the Culture of Law. Both of these men will be speaking in Las Vegas, November 17th and 18th at the Law Firm Leadership Summit. I'm so excited that they're going to be there with us, and they've got a lot to share. Look, these guys are more than just athletes. They're more than just celebrity names. Both of these men understand leadership. They know what it's about. They've lived it. They've experienced it, both good and bad. And so we've got a privilege today to spend some time with them. Kurt, Larry, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. What are we doing wrong, Larry, that we're in hotel rooms and he's got palm trees behind him? We need to get on your plan, I think.
I agree.
Come visit anytime, gentlemen. Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Larry's in Orlando. Kurt is in Cleveland, about to do Monday Night Football. Larry, I'm not going to let you tell any stories. Our podcast duration is not long enough for you to tell any stories about me. But, man, I appreciate you being here, and it's been good to know you all these years.
I feel the same way.
Guys, let's talk about some leadership. Now, you both have lived this. You both have seen what leadership can do and what it can't do, or the pitfalls of poor leadership, because you've both played football, professional football at the highest level, Super Bowl level. So I want to start off with when excellence is your goal, whether you're on a team playing sports or in a law firm, in industry, when excellence is your goal, how critical is leadership?
Leadership is, I think, key to everything, but it's the standard by which, we all follow along when we're in any kind of an organization. I've always believed that leadership, first and foremost, is what gets us to believe in the possibilities. I'll look at the situation when I landed in Arizona, and, after being there a little while, what I came to realize is that the biggest thing about that organization that hadn't really won in 50 years was they didn't believe in the possibilities. It didn't have anything to do with us not having talent or not having the right guys in the locker room, but because over and over and over again, whether it was hearing the stuff on the outside or even the people on the inside, not believing in the possibilities of what they could accomplish, it was just kind of day by day, one foot in front of the other, without ever really, when you talk about, Bill, that standard of excellence, without ever really believing that excellence was something that could be accomplished within that organization. And so, I'm a full believer that, great leadership helps us to understand and believe in the possibilities. And then from there, it's that leadership being able to design a standard, that standard of excellence every single day. And what that looks like. I think the craziest thing about excellence to me is I think oftentimes we think of leadership, excellence, all this stuff, and we think about the big things or the big moments. What I've come to realize over the years that to me, excellence is about the little moments. It's about the little things, that happen throughout the course of a day that sets you on a particular path. I don't want to hog this whole thing, but I remember when I got cut by the Green Bay Packers, and 2 weeks later I was working in a grocery store, and I remember thinking to myself, "What in the world am I doing here? And how could this ever help me moving forward?" Right? Because my goal was to obviously play in the NFL, and I'm working in a grocery store, and I have no idea, why I'm here or how I'm getting out of here and all of that. But at some point I had to realize, okay, this is where I'm at, right? As much as I don't want to be here, this is my place right now. What can I do right now that can help me big picture wise, if I ever get that opportunity? And, being a guy that stocks shelves, at the end of the night, we always had to face our aisles. And so it was pulling all the product to the front of the aisle, to the front of the shelves. So when somebody walked down the aisle at like 5 a.m, it looked like it was completely full. And you guys walked through many grocery stores. I know you've never walked down an aisle and said, "Man, does this aisle look really, really good?" All you want to know is, where's the baby food? Where's the cereal? What do I need? But I remember telling myself that every night before I left that grocery store, my aisle was going to be the best faced aisle in the store. It was going to look better than every single aisle that was there. And to me, it's kind of that idea is that I think great leadership takes the mindset that no matter if anybody ever notices, I'm going to live a life of excellence, even in the smallest things. And those are the things to me that start to carry over when people watch leaders and what they do. Is, man, he even does that with excellence, or she even does that with excellence. And it starts to carry over to other people understanding what excellence looks like and what true leadership, what that demonstrates on a daily basis.
That's so good, Kurt. And, you know, what's interesting is that a lot of people think that leadership just has to do with vision. And there's no doubt leaders have to have great vision. But if you don't have the follow through to bring that vision to life, and that's the details that you're talking about. Yeah, you can be a great orator. You can be somebody who can cast the vision and get people to follow. But if you can't discipline them in the details, right? The little things, the everyday, the consistence, you're not going to reach greatness. You'll think about it, you'll dream it, you may even see what it looks like, but you'll never attain it.
I might
Great.
also say this, Bill, is that sometimes when you get into those positions and you share that vision, sometimes the vision is harder for everybody to see. When you come in with this big vision that this is what we can be and this is what we can accomplish, and everybody's looking around like, why does this person think that? We've never had that here. But sometimes they can buy in better to the everyday examples that you set and go, okay, I can't really fully grasp this vision yet, but I can see what Bill's doing every single day, and I can do that. And that to me is where you start to realize, okay, one step at a time, and then you start to see some progress, and that's when you start to buy into that vision.
That's
Yeah, like I
fantastic.
would like,
That's really
Bill,
good stuff. Yeah, Larry,
I
go,
would like
man.
to, I would like to opine on what Kurt talked about, and he hit on a very important topic. Everybody, when they hear the word leadership, they start thinking about ways they can lead and demonstrate leadership ability in their different areas of expertise. But most of us have no idea what true leadership is, right? And I think I found myself in that position, as a young player when I first met Kurt. I was a first round draft pick, and they said, "Hey, you have to lead. You're a cornerstone part of this organization." And I'm like, I just run routes and catch footballs, right? I had no idea what that meant, and until you see it, you understand. Like when you see leadership, you understand it a lot better. And as you're shaping yourself, and no matter what role you are in the company, no matter what role you are in each team, I mean, we all have a duty that we are tasked with, right? And you need to do that. Kurt touched on his task was to make sure his aisle looked great at his grocery store. That might be your job at that particular time. Obviously, you have greater aspirations to do something that's more and earn more, being a higher position, but you have to do that at that particular time. And I think sometimes leading is just doing the basic tasks to the very best of your ability until you have a better understanding of what's required to be able to elevate to the next level. I see a lot of people, they want to be an executive VP, after being there 2 years. Do they have the experience to be that? No, they don't. So I think sometimes people's aspirations what don't match their expertise at the time. And I think understanding that gives you a better idea of how to lead. And I learned that as a young player. I thought I was doing things the right way until Kurt came in and said, "Look, yeah, you're a good player, but Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt are much better, and these are the reasons why they're better. And until you do this consistently,
Wow.
you don't even have a chance to be in that conversation." And to be 20, 21 years old and hear that for the first time, like you're not good enough to act this way, or to not practice hard or do those things, like it was a shock to my system. But immediately I realized that this is a man I want to follow, because he sees the big picture. He understands what it takes for me to not only get to where I want to go, but to look at it holistically. Is this helps our team get to where we all want to go? And so, like he switched the way I even thought about things, and there was something that I always took to into account as I had more of a leadership role as my career matured.
Guys, that fantastic stuff. Talking about the grocery aisle, doing the little things. Larry, when Kurt comes in and tells you got to do these other things better if you want to be the best, I'm reminded of this principle. He who is faithful in a little will be given much. In other words, you've got to do the little things right. You've got to be faithful with what you're given. And I know a lot of people, especially in the legal industry, they become a lawyer or they become an executive in a law firm, or but they're still young in the process, and they think because they've gotten through law school, or they've been hired by this particular firm, that title should come with some gravitas. But really, it goes back to be faithful in the little stuff. If you got to clean toilets, clean toilets. If you got to pick up paper off the floor, pick up paper off the floor. Do everything that needs to be done to be great. Not just the big stuff, not just the stuff that has to do with titles, but the stuff that comes with everyday excellence and greatness. You guys have been on a lot of teams. You've seen a lot of teams. You've seen great teams. You've seen mediocre teams. Do you think that a group of people, even highly talented, do you think they can reach their greatest potential without great leadership? Larry, you start on that. Well,
Yeah, but I think it's very difficult to do that. Honestly, leadership brings out the strongest qualities in individuals, in my opinion. And I hate to beat a dead horse, but Kurt is like he's the perfect example of that, because he always set the standard. And how do you know the standard if nobody is setting it for you, right? How do you know what the goals are? How do you know what the objective is? How do you know um, what your task is, like that you want to be a part of, you want to be associated with, if somebody doesn't set it for you? And until you have that, it's very difficult for you to do that. And when things are going offline and people start having different opinions, the leadership is always what brings you back to that common denominator that you guys set, that you say, hey, look, this is our goal. Like, yes, I know this is something that somebody else wants to do. This is another thing that somebody else wants to do, but this is what we all agreed on is important, and this is what we agreed that we were going to do it in this manner, and we need to focus on how we need to do that. This is the challenges that we're facing and how we're going to work around it. Like, if you don't have somebody that's there to be able to keep you on that objective, is very difficult. So in my opinion, in my experiences, I've never seen it happen.
Wow.
And I would just say that, it's an interesting question, because I think so often we throw out this idea of leadership and we look at it as a hierarchy, right? Because you're saying, well, can a team reach its full potential without great leadership? I mean, the answer to that is no, but I don't necessarily think that leadership has to be a head coach or whoever's leading the organization. I think, in that example, players can be the leaders. If Larry's going out there every day, no matter what the coaches are doing or what the organization is saying, and Larry's going out there every day and putting forth this excellence and showing us a different standard, I believe the leadership can happen even coming from, quote unquote, non-leadership type roles, or, when we're looking at peers. But the leadership has to be there, but it can show up in a lot of different ways. I think too often we think, okay, leadership is set aside for those that are in leadership positions. I believe we're all in leadership positions. And so, when I got to Arizona, that was one of the challenges that when I got there, and I talked to you about a little bit about it earlier, is I don't think anybody believed in the possibilities. And that was all the way from ownership to coaches to players. It was just, this is how it is here in Arizona. This is all we know, and this is how it is. And so even though I wasn't necessarily thrust into a huge leadership position, although, being the quarterback of a football team, it always lends itself to some of that. My goal was to infiltrate the leaders, to infiltrate the people that were in leadership positions, to get them to believe. So, back to your question, Bill, yes, I think leadership is important, but it can show up in a lot of different places in a lot of different ways. And I don't think it just has to, start and end with those people that are in, what we would see as a higher position than other people.
Bill, and Bill, to touch on that a little bit more, I've even seen it in practice. I remember going on a USO tour in Iraq and being able to sit in on some briefing meetings, with SEAL Team 4, I believe it was. And you have corporals and you have senior leadership. And in this meeting, anybody had the open floor. If they objected on anything. Why should we breach this door as opposed to this door? And the last time we did it this way, and we faced this adversity. Like, anybody, it was open. It literally was open discussion. Anybody could say anything. Didn't matter if you were, leading the mission or if you were the lowest ranked person in the mission. Everybody's opinion mattered. It was more so everybody was on the same accord. There was no questions when the mission started, and obviously it's mission critical to be able to have everybody on the same accord because it's life or death situation in those. But I mean, I saw it work on that level. Then if it can work on a life and death situation, it should be able to work in any other one.
Man, what powerful stuff, guys! In the context that a lot of our watchers, a lot of our listeners are going to be from the legal industry. I've been sharing this concept for several years that I call, and other people have used the term as well, an ownership mentality. I want everybody in the organization to have an ownership mentality. You touched on it, Larry, that when the leader may bring us back to that goal, but we all agreed this was the goal, right? We all agreed this is the goal and this is the manner that we're going to get there. What you guys are saying has a lot to do with ownership mentality. It's not about just the people with the titles. It's not about the hierarchy. It's about everybody owning the goal and owning the results, right? If everybody on the team in the organization has an ownership mentality about what we're doing and where we're going, then you're right, Kurt. Leadership just flows from every space. And in that context, the one thing that I would add, and I think that's why we're going to have such a great time in Vegas at the conference, Liz Wiseman wrote the book Multipliers, and her whole concept is that the best leaders make other people better. The best leaders share an ownership mentality, and you have other. So that's the idea. Like what you're saying, Kurt, is it's not just the people with the titles, but if the people with the titles are doing their job well, what they're doing is creating more leaders. They're extending that influence. They're multiplying, as Liz Wiseman would say, they're multiplying that ownership mentality so that everybody is thinking like a leader. Everybody is thinking about the goal, not just their little kingdom. Fantastic, fantastic stuff. Guys, you've been around a lot of great coaches, a lot of great players, leaders in the league. What are some of the qualities? What are some of the things that you see in people that are able to take other people and lead them into greatness?
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is that I've always believed that leadership comes from respect. And so it's hard to lead anybody until you have their respect. And the question for me always becomes, how are you going to earn somebody's respect? So when you talk about great coaches or great leaders I've been around, I've seen them do it different ways. Dick Vermeil was one of the greatest leaders that I was around. And what I love so much about Dick was he was a guy that made you feel like you were the most important person in the room, that he had your best interest in mind at all times. So he connected to your heart in a unique way. Had other great coaches like a guy like Mike Martz, who was the smartest guy in the room every time we stepped into the room. So he earned the respect of the players by being the smartest guy in the room. So I think, when it comes to leaders, there's a lot of different ways to lead, right? There's a lot of great leadership books out there, but there's no cookie cutter way in terms of how you're going to lead. But you got to figure out what is that allows you to garner the respect of the people that you're trying to get to follow you. And, that to me was always interesting as I, went through, my career path and watched different coaches and watched how they connected to their players. And you guys know this is one of those you learn from the good and you learn from the bad, right? When you're around bad leaders, you go, okay, all right, I see why this guy or this gal is missing the mark in this situation. But that to me was the biggest thing. And so I always think about that whenever I get into those kind of situations, where I'm in a leadership role, is go, okay, how am I going to gain the respect of this person? And, sometimes, you're fortunate that, you're a Hall of Famer or Super Bowl champion. And so you have, that initial respect to some degree. Right. But I still believe no matter what your accolades are or what your resume says, it comes down to when you're with your people, whoever those people are, they have to respect you. They're not going to follow you, or at least follow you to the degree that you want them to accomplish what you want to accomplish as a team, without them respecting you at another level. And yep. It's very key to figure out what that is, and to me, I always felt like it had to be, something that was authentic. You couldn't try to be, a leader like someone else. And again, Larry and I probably, neither one of us were big, like rah-rah guys, jumping up and down And we've seen some great leaders like that are boisterous, that what they say carries heavy weight. Larry and I don't think either one of us that was natural to our personality. Didn't mean we didn't go there at times, but we had to figure out what was natural, because I believe everybody sees through anything we try to do that's not in character for us. We got to
Well
lead
said.
based on what is authentic to us, and then we have to adjust accordingly to the different situations that we're in. But that authenticity to me was always very, very key with the great leaders that I was around.
It's good. Good stuff. Larry.
Well, I mean, Kurt hit it nail on the head. Authenticity is extremely important, and being true to who you really are and what you want to represent. And I've seen leaders in all different fronts, and I have a lot of really great mentors that are not even from the sports world. A friend like George Roberts, who started KKR, the private equity firm, and at their heights, have 40,000 employees, and being able to articulate accurately, what the standard is and how he wants to go about, acquisitions and mergers and things of that nature. And, being able to convey that through that many people, is something that I really admire. And in my opinion, it's much more difficult in business than it is in sports, because a lot of times in sports, the emotions of what's happening. And it's very easy to get up when you're walking out of a stadium and there's 65,000 people screaming, and there's millions of people watching you on TV. And there's so much more, at stake than just, sitting in an office room and being able to do it. And so, being able to have, examples like that also on the other side has been very helpful to me in terms of helping me become a better and more effective and efficient leader. But Kurt did touch on something that's really important. Is if you expect to lead people, you have to be able to gain their trust, and they have to be able to understand that you do care about them more deeply than whatever the task that you're asking them to do.
Huge.
And if they don't feel that, they're not going to go the extra mile. They're not going to come early. They're not going to stay late. They're not going to make sure that report that needed to be turned in on Friday, when they know they have their children's graduation on Saturday morning, is done. Because if that feeling is not there and it's not mutual, they're not going to put that extra effort in.
Man, Larry, I love what you just said. That my particular piece in this industry is sharing with leaders this model of love your people, demand high performance. And you said it there. When you love your people, when a leader knows how to really love and care about the people that they're leading, those people are so much more likely to give you everything they've got. They're so much more likely to believe that you have their best interest at heart. And so they're willing to be coached. They're willing to give themselves to the task. But it starts with building that trust. And it starts with them feeling like this person cares more. And you nailed it, Larry. This person, this leader cares more about me than just the task I can complete for them. That is powerful, especially right now in the climate that we've got in the work climate of America. People more and more are saying, I want to know that the company I work for, that the leaders that I work for, I want to know that they genuinely care about me more than just what I can provide, what I can produce. Kurt, you touched on something that I think is extremely powerful, and that is some leaders not even fully knowing, what they believe yet, or fully understanding leadership. Larry, I think you said some things along those lines as well. One of the things when I'm coaching law firm COOs, one of the first things I ask them to do is to develop what I call their leadership ethos. And in other words, just a few simple questions. What I want them to think about at the deepest level is, what do you believe about people? What is it? What are your deeply held beliefs about people? What are your deeply held beliefs about performance? Right? What are your deeply held beliefs about how teams reach the highest level? And the reason I ask them to do that, and I spend several days, and I don't give them any more direction than that. I just tell them, I want you to write down everything you believe about these things, starting with people, is because I think most folks just think leadership is kind of this ambiguous, idea, and some people have it and some people don't. When at the end of the day, it's something that you can learn. Now, people can be gifted at different levels to be leaders, but you can learn what it takes to help grow another human being. You can learn what it takes to help lead another person in the right direction. When all of us become parents, we have to learn how to lead. There's no necessarily a manual. And whether you want to or not, you're leading that child, you're leading that family. So I love the idea that you can take some concepts, you can embrace them, learn what you believe, and then let your leadership flow out of that in an authentic way. You guys touched on it. My next question, I still want to dive into it a little bit more. What role does trust play? If you're trying to lead a group of people, especially into high performance, what role does trust and you might even say love, what role do those things play in leadership?
Man, I think trust is everything. In our profession, Kurt and I, if he didn't trust that when he gave me a signal that I was going to run the route that he expected me to run, um, he wasn't going to throw me the football. There was many occasions I can go back and practice. I run a deep end, right, and it's cover two, and I would run outside the corner, and I would get inside, and I would be open. And he wouldn't know. He would throw the ball. He wouldn't throw the ball to me, and I would come back and practice. Say, Kurt, I was open. He said, Larry, I cannot trust you if you outside release this cornerback. I cannot trust you because it's more important for you to get leverage on that safety than it is what you're doing with this cornerback. I say, Kurt, but I'm winning. It's like I'm off of you as soon as I see you go out there. And so he did not trust me. He did not trust me that I was going to make the right decision until I proved to him that he could trust that I was going to do what he was coaching me to do. I wasn't going to get the ball. So like it's all about trust. It's all about, Kurt calls it protection and the line slides to the right. If one guy doesn't do that, no, that's his livelihood being put on the line. So it's all about trust when you step out there, and not only so much in the corporate setting, trusting the person, but trusting that you have a care for what's important to them. Now today and age, I mean, there's so many social issues that come up. You know, you know, from abortions to LGBTQ, thoughts and beliefs, social equality, all of these things that we are now, been bringing to the forefront. An employer has to let their employees know that those are issues that matter to the company, that you stand by them. You want to see not only that they're excelling at work, but what they believe in and the lives that they lead are supported as well. And so it's much bigger nowadays than it's ever been. And so trust is huge to have.
Yeah, it's obviously huge. It's funny, Larry sharing that story, and I just watched a tape of an NFL game from this past weekend. And every time I see a wide receiver go outside on an in route, just like Larry talked about, he's the first one I think about. Half the time I'll even text him, like, don't go outside on an in route. But you know what? Part of the point there that I was trying to get Larry to understand is you take the ball and you go stand back in the pocket. And when you turn and look at yourself running an in route and you see the defender inside of you, are you ever going to throw it? And so it's the ability to be able to put yourself in the shoes of another person and understand how every little thing helps the whole. And that it wasn't necessarily a matter of, oh, can I trust you to cross that guy's face? It was, you didn't do the right thing in the beginning that we taught you. So I don't know what's going to happen. So we have to believe that we're all working together and that you understand why I need you to do that. That's the most important thing that I needed from Larry. Not, hey, I'm just going to win at the end of the day. Well, you got to know what I'm looking at and what makes me be successful, when I'm playing the game, because I can't just sit there all the time and just wait to see, oh, does he get all the way across that defender? And again, people listening might not understand what we're talking about, but can I wait long enough for him to win? Because I want to just let the ball go because there's guys trying to kill me, right? There's guys trying to hit me there. I can't stand back there and just wait and hope that, you get to the end result. And so that trust became important, that I needed Larry to trust what I was telling him because of where I was standing with the football. And he would come back and say the same thing. Trust me, when this defender's here, I'll catch that ball. And so it was that back and forth understanding of, what we each needed to do for each other to be successful. You talk about that word trust, and I love the word trust. But, Larry, I think kind of touched on it a little bit. To me, it was the idea that tremendous leadership is about trusting that the person that's trying to lead you has your best interest in mind, not just theirs, or your best interest in mind, not just the group's, but they want you to be successful. That we have to believe that when somebody's going to tell me to do something that's going to have an impact on what I accomplish or how far I go in my current profession, I need to know that that person, has my best interest in mind. That doesn't mean it can't be in their best interest as well, right? Larry getting open on a route helps me to be successful. It helps us to be successful. But at the end of the day, I want Larry to be, I see the potential of Larry. I want him to be great. So I need him to understand that that's part of why I'm leading him and teaching him in that direction, is because this will make you better than you are right now. And I believe that's very important. I've coached high school football. And one of the things that I always tell my players is that I will always attack a problem. I will never attack a person. Will always attack a problem. I will never attack a person.
Love
And
it.
obviously, when you get into any kind of situation, it can look very much the same, right? If we get into a film session and I'm like, Larry, you can't go outside on the in route. That could very easily be taken by Larry as, why is he attacking me? Why is he yelling at me? Why is he calling me out? When in essence, yeah, Larry was, in that particular situation who we had to teach through. But I don't care who it is. I want everybody to hear that I need you to do this because this helps you to be successful and it helps us to be successful. But we're in a culture now where everybody looks to be offended, right? Everybody looks to go, oh, it's personal. Oh, Kurt called me out. I'm not going to talk to him anymore, or I'm going to be mad at him, or I'm going to, send something ugly on Twitter just because as opposed to, once we start to realize, man, this person has my best. He is only doing this and he's only coaching me harder. He's only trying to push me in that direction. And sometimes discipline, right? He's only disciplining me because he knows ultimately this is going to make me better, or I have to avoid these things. That's the dynamic we face with kids. I've got 7 kids and it's that fine balance. But, I never do anything as a parent just because I want it done. My mindset is always, I want to protect my kids. I want to help teach my kids. So when I'm not there, but they need to know that the decisions I'm making are because I love them, and they have to trust that I'm doing it for their best interest in mind, not just because it's easier on me, or not just because I want to pretend like I've got the power so I can, no, I want them to know, man, Dad never does anything that isn't in my best interest. Even if I don't like it, I trust that he's making these decisions, or he's teaching me, or he's leading me in this way, because at the heart of it, he wants me to be the best that I can be.
Absolutely. Such good stuff, guys. And I'm gonna give you our last question that we're gonna wrap up on. I'm gonna give you a few moments to think about it while I touch on some of the things that you guys have spoken about just now. The last question is going to be, what advice would you give to 22-year-old you? And if you could go back, so I want you to think about that as you're saying that, though, listeners, people who are watching, these guys are sharing this gospel of love your people, demand high performance, right? When we can convince those that we have the opportunity to serve and lead, that we have their best interest in mind, where we care about them. And look, you got to choose the right people. We always talk about that. You got to hire the right people. You got to get the right people in place so that you can truly trust them. Once you do that, and then you begin to care for them in a way that shows them, look, they're more than just numbers. They're more than just performance. You want what's in the best interest of their lives. Then they begin to give you everything they've got. They can be coached hard. They can be driven to a place of excellence, but it all starts with building that trust. Love your people, demand high performance. It works, guys. It works at the NFL level. It works in the corporate level. It works in a family at the basic level. So, guys, all right, 22 years old. Think about who you were back when you were 22 years old. If you could go back right now, back into time, and give 22-year-old you some advice, what would you tell him?
You want to go, Kurt, or you want me to go?
It doesn't matter, whatever.
Me for sure. I would have done a better job of working on me, like the emotional aspect of myself, more. I love working out. I love running routes. I was in love with the process of being great at football. I wish I would have invested more time in, developing other aspects of myself. And I know, it's easy to look back now at 39 and say that, not just like anybody that's working, in corporate America, to think about, developing the whole person. But, as you get older, you look back and on the things that you wish you could have improved on, the relationships that would have been more valuable to you, because when you get out of the game, like there, literally thousands of teammates, right? And there's probably 10, maybe 15 people that I really keep in touch with, or keep in touch with me, that are really, really invested in seeing how I'm doing, like Kurt being one of those people. You think that's a lot of people that you just have very transactional relationships with, that are just kind of passing through your life. And I wish I would have been more intentional about really cultivating some of those relationships and strengthening them, because like there's a lot of guys that I play with that are not doing great, post career, and for a plethora of different reasons. But maybe if you would have poured into that person a little bit more, and took a little bit more interest and invested more in their lives, or they invested more in your lives, where could you be? And so I think about that often. And we talked about our children and things that we want to work on. Like I really work hard on instilling those values in my kids. And also one I think I did not do, and I still don't really do. I never really sit back and enjoy the moment. I experience something, no matter if it's good, bad, or indifferent, and I immediately try to figure out what I can do to improve, as opposed to just taking back, like, man, God, I really enjoyed that interaction with Kurt. We had a moment a couple weeks ago in LA, and it was just, we were on the football field before Monday Night Football, and we were just talking about life. And like, I remember walking away from, like, man, I miss those moments with him, just talking about life, talking about things that don't have to do with route running and playing football games, but like actual real conversations about his sons, and how they're enjoying their college experience, and how's my son enjoying his freshman year in high school, like stuff that actually really matters, right? And I think as the older you get, you appreciate those moments more. I wish I would have invested more in those when I was a little bit younger.
Wow, great stuff, Larry.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Funny question, because you said when I was 22. I probably learned this lesson when I was 22, and it was probably the most powerful lesson that I learned throughout my career. And I'm sure I'll share it in Vegas when I talk. But when I was in college, I sat on the bench for 4 years in college, and I was the guy that thought he was the more talented guy at the position. That to me, there was no question that I should have been playing from a talent standpoint. And I couldn't figure out why I wasn't playing, why I couldn't get on the football field. And so I had an older friend of mine that was on the team that had a better relationship with the coaches. And I just asked him, do you mind going up to the coach and just asking them on my behalf, like, what am I missing? Right? You feel like you're doing everything. What am I missing that's not allowing me to get on the football field? And I'll never forget, I waited around for him, and it was just the two of us in the locker room when he came back down from talking to the coaches. And he said, all right, Kurt, the coaches said that the reason you're not playing is because you're not very good in practice. And, I remember thinking, very much like the Allen Iverson rant, like, really, are we talking about practice here? Like, we're not talking about, the scrimmages or the big moments, or, when they throw me in a critical time in practice and we're competing. We're not talking about that. You're talking about everyday practice, that's the reason I'm not playing. I mean, it makes no sense. I'm more talented. I shine in those big moments. And so that was my initial thought, was like, you walk away and you're kind of angry, like, come on, that's ridiculous. And then I go back for the next couple of days and I start to think about it. I'm like, okay, in high school, we played 9 games a year in high school football. In college, now they play 12. I don't know, 10 or 11 when I was there. In the NFL, Larry and I, we played 16 games a year. And I got to thinking about this, and I'm like, man, it doesn't matter, what level I've played at. 95% of my life, from a football perspective, is lived in practice. What I do and what I show people and how I impress myself upon people happens in practice, not in the games. The coaches had to see who I was going to be every day so they could trust me, right? If you're not going to show up every day and be this, how can we trust you to be that on Sunday afternoon or on Saturday afternoon? And this is a lesson that I learned in football, but to me has become so important in life. Being a married guy, when I got married, I thought the same thing. I thought, okay, if I just win the big moments, when the lights are on, if I win those 12 games a year, the anniversaries and the birthdays, I got this thing. Like, I'm going to be crushing this thing as a husband. Okay, if you're married out there and you're listening, you realize it's not about the big moments are nice, but it's about the they want to know who you're going to be every day. They want to know how you're going to show up and how you're going to love them every day. Same thing as a parent, right? You think about that when you have kids, like, oh, okay, when I get those big moments, when they mess up and I got to stand up on my soapbox or I've got to give them that big talk, I better be really good in that moment. I've realized the same thing. All my kids want to know is who you're going to be every day, Dad. How are you going to go about your job? How are you going to love my mom? How are you going to love my siblings? How are you going to treat me every single day? Those are the things that define who we are. And I wish I would have figured that out earlier, because I thought so much of life was just about the big moments. What do I do in the big moments? And I realized that our lives are lived in practice, every day in practice. Larry and I sitting around in the locker room was way more valuable than what I did for those 2 hours in practice, no matter what we were talking about and how we were talking about the route running and stuff that we talked about earlier. It was what I did every day that made him say, all right, I want to listen to this guy. I want to follow this guy. I know what this guy is all about every day. So it makes it easy for those 2 hours when the lights are on to listen and to give everything that I have. And so that was probably the greatest lesson I've ever learned in life, is that we live our lives in practice so they can be, so it can be shown on the big stage. But practice is where we really define who we are and we really show people. So we're talking about leadership. That to me is where leadership is defined. We want to think about it when when Larry and I stand up on the stage in Vegas, like that's going to be, no, it's all the stuff we did up to that point so that people can see us and go, okay, I know who this person is. So it makes it so much easier for them to listen to us. That big board meeting that you have, they got to know who you are before you walk into that board meeting for you to have the full impact that you can have. And all that comes down to, what kind of practice player are you? Who are you every day of life, not just in those big moments?
Fantastic. Guys, thank you so much. Just an absolute privilege that you guys chose to invest a little bit of time with us. We appreciate it. Kurt, excited to see you in Vegas and excited to hear what you have to say from the stage. You've been pure gold today. Larry, my friend, I love you. I appreciate everything that you do. And guys, thanks so much. Thanks for being on and everything that's going on in your lives. I know both of you have a whole lot. We absolutely wish you the best, blessings, and lots of success. And thanks for the advice and thanks for the tips today. Folks, don't miss November 17th and 18th. Yeah, you want to... Yeah, November 17th and 18th in Las Vegas, the Law Firm Leadership Summit. Larry will be there. Kurt will be there. I'll be there. Several great speakers from around the country. Thank you for listening today, folks. This is Transforming the Culture of Law. Never miss an episode. You can subscribe to the Culture of Law on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or litify.com/culture of law.